Making headlines for this week of May 19th. Whistleblower Week. Two prominent faces released from incarceration offer reason for cheer for the movement. Eurasian euphoria. Amidst kickoff of Belt and Road Forum in China, world gets glimpses of the new unfolding paradigm. Bitcoin bait. While some speculate a bubble, a movement is underway to legitimize the virtual currency. And from sharks to humanity, animal communicator shares message about what sharks think about humans.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. Cheers are going out worldwide this week as two prominent whistleblowers each received his and her freedom after years of excessive and arguably illegal incarceration and torture. We start first with Chelsea Manning. RT reported last January 17th that President Barack Obama has shortened the prison sentence of former Army private and whistleblower Chelsea Manning. She will be released on May 17th instead of remaining in military custody until 2045, as originally sentenced. Manning had leaked to WikiLeaks hundreds of thousands of U.S. government documents that came to be known as the Iraq War Logs and the Afghan War Diary. She was convicted by a U.S. Army court-martial to 35 years imprisonment in August of 2013 under the Espionage Act. In making his statement at that time, Obama said that her term would be limited to time served plus 120 days. Last week, the 120-day limit was completed and Manning has been released. On the website of ABC News affiliate KWBE in Nebraska, the website reported the following. Chelsea Manning was released from military prison Wednesday after 7 years of incarceration at the U.S. disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. A free woman after President Obama commuted her sentence 3 days before he left office. Her imprisonment was longer than any whistleblower in U.S. history. An Army spokesperson confirms that Chelsea Manning left Fort Leavenworth's disciplinary barracks at 2 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday. In an exclusive statement to ABC News, Manning said, "I appreciate the wonderful support that I have received from so many people across the world over these past years. As I rebuild my life, I remind myself not to relive the past. The past will always affect me, and I will keep that in mind while remembering that how it played out is only my starting point, not my final destination." Another article appearing on the ArsTechnica.com website added the following. Because Manning's conviction is under appeal, she is to remain in the military on excess leave in an active duty status, entitling her to health care, the military said. If she loses her appeal, she might be dishonorably discharged and could lose her health care and other benefits. Neither the military nor Manning's supporters said where she would be living, but Manning tweeted in January she would return to Maryland where she previously resided. The U.S. did have an opportunity to get Julian Assange in exchange for Chelsea Manning. The article closed with the following. In the days before Obama commuted Manning's sentence, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange said that he would surrender to U.S. authorities if Obama showed Manning mercy. However, Assange later backtracked out of his pledge, saying he meant he would surrender only if Obama allowed Manning to leave the brig immediately, and not on May 17th. Had Obama immediately released Manning, he could have had Assange. And yet, he didn't do that. This leads us now to the story about Julian Assange. In a rare statement by the prosecutor's office in Sweden, it has been announced that the state prosecutor has said that they will no longer be pursuing charges against Assange and that the warrant for his arrest has been revoked. RT quoted the statement as follows. Director of Public Prosecution, Ms. Marianne Nee, has said today that she decided to discontinue the investigation regarding suspected rape, a lesser degree, by Julian Assange, the prosecutor's office said. Ni said the prosecution is not making any statement of guilty or not in regards to Assange. Assange's defense lawyer, Per Samuelsson, said the fact that the prosecution won't admit Assange is innocent is simply a matter of them trying to save their faces. The truth is, once they heard Julian Assange during the interview in November last year, they were convinced. He gave a very good explanation to what happened between him and the woman, and the explanation fitted as a glove to all the circumstances in the case. So they could no longer see towards a conviction. If they had indicted him, he would have been acquitted. An English-language news website in Sweden, the local.se, reported on May 15th that Ecuador had criticized Sweden for a serious lack of progress in the Assange case. In a letter to the Swedish government, Ecuadorian authorities accused the Swedish prosecutor in a case of being a lack of initiative, according to BBC reports. Ecuador believes the prosecutor's inability to complete an investigation into an alleged rape in Stockholm dating back to 2010 to be a serious failure, according to the letter. It is unclear at this time if this statement by the Ecuadorian embassy had any influence in the announcement made on the 19th. In another article on the same website, it was being reported that a lawyer representing another woman who claims Assange raped her has expressed anger after the Swedish prosecutors dropped their probe against Assange. It is a scandal that a suspected rapist can escape justice and thereby avoid the courts. There is evidence in the case, and that evidence should have been tested in court. A trial is very important for someone who has been subjected to a rape, as is the possibility to obtain redress. In this case, there have been many twists, and the wait has been very long, the plaintiff's lawyer, Elizabeth Massey Fritz, said in a statement provided to the local. My client is shocked, and a decision to drop the case won't make her change her assertion that Assange exposed her to rape, she added. Swedish prosecutors are bracing themselves for potential fallout from this announcement. So it would seem all of this could have been known years ago had the Swedish prosecutor only traveled to London to do the interview in the beginning, instead of years later. It certainly gives one reason to consider that the U.S. has had an ongoing influence in the case through Sweden. It is also a trademark practice of the U.S., getting proxies to fight certain battles so that the public will not blame the U.S. Thankfully, the general population is starting to wake up to this trend, and they are no longer drinking the lemonade that is being served by the U.S., its media, and its many proxy entities. In other geopolitical news, earlier this week, leaders gathered in Beijing to participate in the first global forum for the Belt and Road Initiative. Chinese Xinhua Net News website reported on May 15th that Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday elaborated on what had inspired him to come up with the Belt and Road Initiative, stressing that it is aimed at galvanizing global cooperation and is open to all. The Belt and Road development does not shut out, nor is it directed against any party, Xi told the summit. Proposed in 2013, the Belt and Road Initiative is a grand plan to connect Asia with Europe and Africa along and beyond an ancient trade route by putting in place an unparalleled trade and infrastructure network. At Monday's summit, Xi spoke of the myriad challenges the world faces: sluggish trade and investment, wobbling economic globalization, increasingly unbalanced development, impact from large-scale migration of refugees and immigrants, as well as wars, conflicts, and terrorism. Countries are exploring their own ways to deal with these challenges and have put forward many good development strategies and initiatives, but it is difficult to rely on a single country to manage or solve the global problems, Xi said, citing the interdependence between nations. Only by aligning their policies and integrating economic factors and resources in a global scale can countries create synergy to promote world peace, stability, and shared development, he noted. Under these circumstances, the world may well draw wisdom and strength from the ancient Silk Road, which features the spirit of peace and cooperation, openness and inclusiveness, mutual learning, and mutual benefit, Xi said. Though originating from China, the Belt and Road Initiative belongs to the whole world, while its development goes beyond regions, stages of development, and civilizations, according to the president. He described the Belt and Road development as a brand of cooperation that is open and inclusive, and a global public good jointly provided by all parties. Under the Belt and Road framework, Xi explained, all parties can join hands to meet the global challenges in the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. Reading between the lines, one may be able to see what appears to be very direct hints at targeting the global cabal without specifically stating it, and the participating countries have a chance to come together to create a different model than the one currently enslaving humanity and destroying our planet. In a separate article from Xinhua on May 14th, the article quoted President Xi as he gave the ceremonial toast at a gala banquet. Xi was quoted as saying that more than 2,000 years ago, our ancestors, driven by a desire for friendship, opened the overland and maritime Silk Roads and thus started a great era of exchanges among civilizations. Today, we gather here to renew the Silk Road spirit and discuss the Belt and Road development for international cooperation. This is both a continuation of our shared legacy and a right choice for the future. We are at a fresh starting point, ready to embark on a new journey together so long as we press ahead with a common vision without backpedaling or standing still. We will achieve greater connectivity and benefit from each other's development. In a BRICS Post article from May 14th, this article has reported Chinese President Xi as pledging $124 billion for the new project. And listeners may recall in the final half of 2016, the business pundits and markets were all claiming that China was in deep trouble financially. Given the rapid explosion of Chinese investment worldwide and the push for major new initiatives such as the Belt and Road, it is pretty easy to determine that China is not in financial trouble at all, but they are creating the new system that will make the old obsolete, and it will remove any remaining status the US dollar may have had as a credible global reserve currency. Although attended by numerous leaders, one leader who may have stood to gain the most legitimacy from the event is Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte, depending upon how one chooses to view him, may be seen as either positive or negative. It is not for me to comment nor judge him on this because I have not been to the Philippines, so I cannot say. From the bigger perspective, however, it is my personal feeling that he, like Trump, is in his position to effect great change, and perhaps it will be the coming moments that will determine whether or not those changes were life-honoring. According to the article from GMA Network on May 14th, President Rodrigo Duterte on Sunday found himself in the company of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi as he attended the gala dinner on the Belt and Road Forum. Duterte walked to the gala dinner alongside the two world leaders, both of whom he had praised amid his repeated criticism of the United States. Both China and Russia have launched initiatives via the BRICS alliance of countries that have been specifically aimed at challenging Western hegemony and the criminal dominance of the U.S. dollar and the global banking cartels. China is now believed to have a currency that is backed by gold, and one may speculate that this is a reason behind the massive global investments underway to entice weaker nations to walk away from their enslavement to the fractional reserve model of debt-based banking. As mentioned at the end of last week's newscast, I replied to a letter asking about my support of certain leaders. I chose to clarify that even though I think that I understand the role a particular leader may play in the bigger picture, it does not necessarily mean I agree with every choice that leader may make at the more three-dimensional level. However, there are extraordinary circumstances with Trump, and I am the first to say that I am aware of his connections to at least one faction of the global banking family network. Given that the Rockefeller faction has had a lot of control of the U.S. media, and the media is attacking Trump, one might think that Trump has connections to the Rothschilds faction. At this point, there might be some logic to that conclusion. The Russian scandal is turning out to be a witch hunt of epic proportions, arguably not seen since Watergate. Greg Hunter of USAWatchdog.com explains a bit of the Trump-related news this week. From his weekly update, I jump to the part of the program where he comments specifically on the Russian scandal.
And then we have one negative headline after another, and there's been many instances where Democrats have given up of sensitive information, but in this case, this is another anonymous source. One anonymous source, and they're running with front page stories and then whipping up a frenzy. And let's impeach Donald Trump, which is totally bogus. They are destroying their credibility, and they're not going to destroy Donald Trump. Here we have it again, the USA Today fish wrap. The propaganda rag, it's not a news organization, Dems demand Trump explain his meeting with Lavrov, the counterpart to the Secretary of State, you think they call him a foreign minister, and then this guy right here, Kislyak, who is the ambassador to America. Now, he is an openly known spy, supposedly, for the Russians, but I mean, here we have the H.R. McMaster, who is the head of his national security, and Tillerson, the Secretary of State in there. You think he's passing secrets? I mean, this is how bad the Russia investigation is going. They got to trump up this. And again, the story was done with an anonymous source. And by the way, H.R. McMaster, when asked about it, said, didn't happen. Didn't give up any information. The Russians are now saying, we'll be happy to provide America with a transcript of this meeting because it was nonsense. That didn't happen. That's unbelievable. Nevertheless, we have, now the former FBI director, Robert Mueller, who supposedly is a good guy, one of the longest serving FBI director for a long time. He's going to look into this Russian inquiry, which is Russian collusion, which I've said many times. The top, even people like Clapper said, no votes were changed at the machines. And then we find out the CIA, with this Vault 7 dump that we have a traitor in our ranks. And now we find out about the so-called Russian hacking of the servers. Remember that, the DNC servers, which they wouldn't allow the FBI to look at because it's such a huge national security issue. Why didn't the FBI just get a warrant and just go in under the Patriot Act and just say this is a national security issue? We're taking them. So where did that information come from? Well, according to Fox News, Seth Rich, this is this kid that worked at the DNC that was supposedly shot in the back at a quote-unquote robbery, which they didn't steal anything. He was murdered at DNC staffer, leaked thousands of internal emails to WikiLeaks, and according to Fox News, the FBI is in possession of their correspondence. Oh, just like Julian Assange said, he didn't get the information from the Russians. I wonder how that plays in with Mueller's investigation into the Russian hacking story. And by the way, General Flynn, that supposedly was in contact with the Russians, has not been charged with a crime. They don't even know if they're going to charge him with the crime. I mean, here you have General Michael Flynn, who had one of the highest security clearances out there. They're going to sell us a case where he's flipped over to help the Russians out? I don't think so. And if that's the case, that's not a Donald Trump story. That's a Michael Flynn story. And by the way, that story came to light. Why? Because of the leaked information. And every time you have one of these leaks, every single time, according to Judge Andrew Napolitano, he says that they're committing a felony. He thinks that the leaks are likely the same people that surveilled Donald Trump. He comes right out and says that they surveilled him. He also broke the story where, MI6, British intelligence was helping the Obama administration surveil the Trump team. He was taken off the air for a while, but CNN confirmed that it happened. And he's saying these are the same people that were surveilling Donald Trump, and they're leaking, classified information. And every time they're leaking this, they're committing a felony, and they're doing it to embarrass and to intimidate and to infuriate and frustrate the Trump administration. They don't want him to succeed at all.
In response to the U.S. media allegations of Trump allegedly supplying Lavrov with foreign secrets, the Russia Insider website came up with a brilliant headline to draw people in to read the story. A beautiful headline, in my personal opinion, because it will give some people the wrong idea, so they will eagerly read the story only to find out that it was something else, but at least they read the story. The headline was this: Putin exiles Lavrov to Siberia for not divulging super-sensitive U.S. secrets provided by Trump. The article then starts out with the following: Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, is a traitor. During his secretive meeting with Donald Trump last week, Lavrov was provided with thousands of terabytes of top-secret information. Victory! Except after Lavrov returned to Moscow, he failed to divulge this super-secret information to Putin or Russia's secret services. As you can probably imagine, Putin is very upset, the article goes on, that Lavrov chose to withhold so many juicy American secrets from him. Even I looked at the headline and wondered if some information was exchanged. Putin faced the media in Italy, and he was asked to comment on this issue, and here is the translation of his statement to the media. He was quoted as saying that, "As for the results of Foreign Minister Lavrov's visit to the United States and his meetings with President Trump, we value them highly. This was the return visit of our foreign minister after we welcomed the Secretary of State, Tillerson, to Moscow. This is a common, natural international practice, but at the same time, we see that political schizophrenia is developing in the United States. I cannot explain it any other way, the accusations against the president that he gave secrets away to Lavrov. By the way, I spoke with him already on the subject, and today I will have to reprimand him because he did not share those secrets with us, not with me, and not with the representatives of the intelligence services of Russia. This is very bad of him." Of course, the audience was laughing at this, so you have to picture how this was playing out in terms of the conference itself. Putin continues, "Moreover, if the administration of the United States finds it possible, we are ready to provide the record of the conversation between Lavrov and Trump to the Senate and the U.S. Congress, if the American administration wants it." In its article on the story, RT quoted Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova from her Facebook posting, which read, "Have you guys been reading American newspapers again? Don't read them. They can be used in many different ways, but one shouldn't read them. Recently, it has become not only harmful, but dangerous." Coming up shortly, CVN will offer some other insights for consideration about Russia, China, the U.S., Trump, and more. In financial news for this week, for those who have been buying Bitcoin and following its price, the week has brought some record highs to the virtual currency, causing some to raise concerns of another bubble forming. There is also some very good news for the currency, but before that, we start first with the news about fears of a Bitcoin bubble forming. RT had an article on May 15th reporting the following. The surge in the price of Bitcoin has some worried that the world's most popular cryptocurrency is an asset bubble in an unregulated market. I could be wrong, but if I was reading between the lines, I might interpret that statement to mean that Western business pundits and financial controllers are worried the currency is an asset bubble and it is within a market where they are unable to have any influence or control over its price. The article also added that an increasing number of alternative cryptocurrencies, amounting to 830 approximately, so-called altcoins, is boosting the speculative shift, with the price of some plummeting over the past week. The speculation among altcoins has benefited anonymous payment systems employed by cyber criminals performing wide-scale attacks. At the same time, growth in initial coin offerings, what's called ICOs, which help blockchain startups to sell their tokens directly to the public to get capital without any regulatory oversight, is fueling the market, drawing attention from lawyers and economists. Some experts are worried ICOs breach existing securities law. An ICO issues crypto tokens rather than stocks and bonds, but that's irrelevant to the substance of activity, which is raising capital from the general public. Capital-raising activities need to be regulated to protect investors. The question is, how sophisticated are these investors, said PricewaterhouseCoopers Director Ajit Tripathi, as quoted by the Financial Times. Last week, a German central bank board member warned the public not to buy Bitcoin, as the bank doesn't recognize it as a currency, and there are serious risks of facilitating speculation. Of course, existing securities laws are designed to protect the wealthy and those who understand the inner workings of the current financial system, and the comment about capital-raising activities needing to be regulated to protect investors obviously has no basis in truth, as it has been clear from recent years that the current system is rigged against the general uninformed investor and works only for those who understand how the game is played. On the opposite side, an article on the Cointelegraph.com website on May 15th has reported that Bilal Badr, a CTO, Chief Technical Officer at a specialized startup in the blockchain technology M-Chain, notes via a mail that the Bitcoin ecosystem is about to enter into the bubble point. However, the ongoing price rise could have continued into the $3,000 to $4,000 region if not for the pending scalability issue. He was quoted as saying, "I think we are at the early stages of a bubble. We might be at the start of a new boom phase," he writes. This year, Bitcoin's price has gained a huge momentum as more and more traders entered the market, and demand increased considerably in some countries, especially in Japan, South Korea, and India. However, this demand doesn't explain the price doubling in 5 months from about $900 to $1,800. Instead, this surge was due to the big speculation movement pushed by 3 factors. He cites the rise in the number of institutional investors coming into the Bitcoin cryptocurrency market as a major factor. He also adds that there is a change of perspective in the way the real world responds to Bitcoin's growing popularity, unlike how it was seen before. He says they don't seem to fight it anymore, and the previous fears have been dismissed. Here is one mind-blowing fact. Anyone who invested $10,000 in Bitcoin in 2010 would now have an asset valued at over $200 million. The currency is slowly gaining credibility, however. In May of 2016, according to an article on the Cointelegraph.com website, Japanese banks are set for embracing Bitcoin after proposed new laws. The cabinet also takes into stock the rising importance of virtual currencies, and the new bills will recognize them as a means of making payments and having the potential to be digitally transferred. Japan has just given virtual currencies legitimacy, something that many other nations are still struggling to come to terms with. An article on a Bitcoin news website reported how Japan was making plans to recognize Bitcoin as a method of payment beginning on April 1st this year. Japan's Financial Services Agency announced that legislation would become effective as of April 1st to recognize Bitcoin as a method of payment in Japan. The article by Kevin Helms also notes that along with making Bitcoin an officially recognized method of payment, the bill also imposes a number of requirements on Bitcoin exchanges. They will be required to register with the Prime Minister and must meet a number of requirements. For example, they must have a minimum capital of 10 million yen, as well as a sufficient IT system for theft and loss prevention. They must also establish several systems and processes, such as employee training, internal rules, governance, and guidance for outsourcing. Another first for Japan is that they will soon be offering Bitcoin users fixed-term deposits with interest. This, according to the Nikkei Asian Review news website. The article reported that Japanese Bitcoin holders will soon be able to reap virtual interest as domestic exchange CoinCheck is launching the country's first interest-paying fixed deposit accounts for the digital currency. The news does not stop there, however. Joseph Young of Cointelegraph reported on February 12th that the Philippine Central Bank, the BSP, is officially regulating local Philippine Bitcoin exchanges as remittance companies and recognizing Bitcoin as a legitimate payment method. Young also reported on May 11th that Bitcoin will be treated as money in Australia by July 1st and will be exempt from goods and services tax. Bitcoin traders and investors will not be taxed for purchasing and selling Bitcoin through regulated exchanges and trading platforms. Bitcoin and security expert Andreas Antonopoulos was quoted as saying in the article that governments can choose to either do nothing, which is okay, make things worse for cryptocurrency trading, like what Australia did by imposing sales taxes on all cryptocurrency transactions, or they can make things easier for companies by reining in the banks and encouraging companies by creating a level playing field. The new policy would dramatically change Australia's financial landscape. The article states that banks will start offering services to Bitcoin exchanges and traders will not be taxed with GST upon the purchase of Bitcoin. The government would also protect Bitcoin businesses and exchanges. China and the United Arab Emirates are other countries that are taking steps forward in recognizing digital currencies as part of the emerging new financial paradigm. As with so many other changes happening in the world, it seems that the better choices are coming from the Eastern countries, and it is they that seem to recognize the writing is on the wall for the Western fiat system of worthless currencies. In general news for this week, with all the mess of information, good and bad, being spread around, where does one go to find the ultimate source of truth? In truth, the answer to this question would be within oneself, him or herself, for this is where truth ultimately resides for each human. However, not all people, not all journalists, myself included, have done the long hours and years of dedicating one's life to contemplating spiritual awareness and making efforts to contact one's higher self, or even another source. Our world has been socialized to condemn and ridicule the idea of channeled messages, because it was meant to discourage humanity in general, but Westerners in particular, from ever seeking connection with one's higher self. It is for this reason, or one of the reasons anyway, natural plants like cannabis have been criminalized to prevent healing and connecting with one's higher self. It is for this reason that children are being force vaccinated and are being fed unhealthy, dangerous food and drinks that will keep them sick, or they are pumped full with fluoride and other chemicals into their bodies to prevent them from awakening to their gifts and abilities at this time. I called a friend of mine, Will Burlinghoff, who lives with his life partner Callista in Australia. Some listeners will recognize him as the human who speaks as cosmic awareness. I had a chance to ask Will's insights on some of the global events. For private sessions, he usually connects directly to cosmic awareness. In this particular session, Will offered his own opinions to me, but with his cosmic awareness in the background. As I constantly tell people, always use your own discernment with any source, and this especially includes my own newscast. Do not believe everything, but simply use whatever you see, read, feel, or know to guide you in your personal journey in accessing the truths you need for any current moment of now. Even if one may have doubts about the source of the information, all one has to do is listen to the information itself, and one can then decide if the information is acceptable as truth. I started out by asking Will how he would introduce himself to those who are experiencing him for the first time, as might be the case here, and to comment on how each individual has access to this truth within oneself. After this, several geopolitical questions will follow.
Yeah, that's a good question because it's a different answer almost every time. But what I would say is that I'm a multidimensional being, a visionary mystic who has learned through my many years of working in this field how to expand my consciousness, and through that action allowing the higher levels of my consciousness to be accessible. But in particular, I have become the conduit for a force in consciousness, a collective force that knows itself or calls itself cosmic awareness. Now, cosmic awareness has many names: infinite mind or divine consciousness. For me, it's cosmic awareness, and it's from a high level in consciousness that I am the voice of it and for it. It can answer questions, anything from really broad questions, political questions, to the most personal questions.
You and I know this, maybe some of the listeners don't, but this is an awareness that is accessible to any individual, really.
If you want to spend 30 plus years in training and countless lifetimes to bring a level of conscious awareness to your own being, yes, it's available to anyone. But I would also say we all are expressions of cosmic awareness, so we do access cosmic awareness or infinite mind, or whatever you want to call it, in different ways. My particular way is what's taken so long to develop as a channel or as a conduit. But we all do it. I mean, artists do it when they have that muse that comes through. Well, that's cosmic awareness. Singers, anybody, really. We all have access to it. I just do it in my unique way.
With all that is currently happening around the world, there is this question of what is really true. And it has been said that people do not want the truth, but only the validation that what they happen to believe is the truth. Any thoughts on this?
First thought, and the biggest part of that whole thing, is the recognition that this is all based on a dualistic attitude. And we live in a dualistic world. The reality we experience is of a binary nature, a dualistic nature. What this means is that it's a yes-no kind of setup. In our own personal scope of our beliefs and everything, that which we believe is the yes, and therefore anybody else's belief is the no. And what we're going into is tremendous polarization right now, where people are becoming so entrenched in their own correctness that they are willing to attack others who are not of the same opinion. And I think that's what we're really seeing. Anybody that's offered truth from someone else's camp, that can't be accepted by them because it's not their truth. It doesn't support their reality. We are seeing extreme polarization now. You can see it in the political situation in the world, and especially in America right now. We're seeing it right now, curiously enough, in the alternative media. Lots of big battles going on right now. And we may actually even be seeing it in our own lives, where we're being challenged by what others believe. And if it's not our belief, then we come out against them. And that's where I think it really is that we won't accept other people's truths. But the problem is, who's to say your truth is the right one either?
Is the current crisis with North Korea an excuse for NATO, Or is it the global cabal attempting to disrupt the new financial paradigm? Or is it the Eastern Alliance allowing this distraction to help facilitate the introduction of the new financial paradigm?
I think there's another way to look at it. Those first three options, they all might have some relevancy, but that's not what I'm picking up on specifically. What I'm picking up, it's more of a distraction. It's more of a way of creating a universal situation on the planet that is all about fear-mongering and creating the situation of a boogeyman. Kim Jong-un is the big boogeyman. He's the crazy man. Something has to be done about him. But this may all be a cover-up, a cover story for the other three things that you were talking about, because that is underway too. I think North Korea, because if you look at their actual situation, even though it's told that they could probably deliver a nuclear warhead on a ballistic missile, they're really not as far technically advanced as people are told they are. So to me, this is a cover story. To me, this is a way of generating a situation of mass fear, and there are goals behind this, purpose behind it. And so you really have to see who benefits from creating this distraction. And I think those ones you mentioned, the ones that are interested in alternative financial situation, etc., they would benefit both in the East but also in the West as well.
Is the Belt and Road Initiative now being introduced to the world a key part of the new financial paradigm? In particular, are the intentions of both Russia and China honorable in helping to transform the current paradigm, or are there concerns that we need to look out for?
Okay, I'm going to give you a straight-up answer and say yes. To me, they are honorable through my source cosmic awareness. I get that there is some definite honor involved in this, a definite objective that is positive. But at the same time, I have to say, if you're going to continue a banking system where people hold the money and hold the power, there is then a danger to this as well. I would also add to that question then, why are they doing it, Russia and China? Because they understand that the ones in control and power, not only the U.S., but the UK and the banking families and all of that, have so much power, and they're taking the world down, and that is one of the reasons these two countries, and we could include the others like the BRICS nations, have an agenda that they would be able to replace the current economic situation as it is now known through America, through England. And I think that, for me, and through the awareness information I get, is the point of it also, that there is indeed good intention here, but again, qualified good intention, okay?
Building then on the answer you have just given, let me ask you this. Are Presidents Xi and Putin receiving any guidance from benevolent galactic entities? And if so, can we make an assumption that their intentions are good?
Yes, there is definitely extraterrestrial intervention, especially in Russia. It is seen that Putin has a lot of contact with the Nordic ones, and that this has helped guide him through a very dangerous minefield. She, the Chinese leader, a little less so. I don't see the extraterrestrial intervention there as much, but I don't think that there's ignorance from what I'm being shown. There is an awareness of it as well. But I'm not seeing that the Nordics are necessarily working directly with them. But there are hidden ones who might well have an extraterrestrial origin behind them that are also involved in China. And there's cooperation between the ET groups, the Nordics and this other group that work with the Chinese, which is not the Nordics, want to be clear. Mm-hmm. But there is agreement between those two groupings to throw off the oligarchy, to throw out the corruption that is still very rampant in the Western nations.
Could this be the group that some sources are calling the Chinese elders?
Immediately, the energy I got around that, when I put it is that, yes, they are the same ones. But they're actually the ones who brought the Chinese race to this planet in the first place. This was an interdimensional group and even extraterrestrial, and that they are definitely the ones that are called the Chinese elders. But they are also called other names too.
What is President Trump dealing with in his world?
Oh, that's a good one. What I say and what awareness has told me, a very public coup d'etat that is underway in America. It is so public that most people do not see it as trying to overthrow the government. But that's exactly what's happening. This through the actions of those who are called the neocons, the different groups that are in support of the different parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And I am here talking about the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. I sense, and what I've been told, is that his influence and his connection is to the Rothschilds. So these groups have fought each other. And on the political side of things, they are fighting each other right now. And this group, this neocon group, who are serving, I'm saying again, the Rockefeller faction, are trying to bring down the Rothschild candidate. Both of those groups are still from the same bigger family and are still serving a hidden master, and therefore even what Trump's going through, there's things behind him that aren't to be completely trusted, but I see that he is trying to sidestep all of this. And it's the way he's doing it is by keeping everyone in confusion, by being unpredictable, by being outrageous. This is actually not just this very massive ego that is in play here. It is a way of him keeping the other side off balance. And it's so interesting what he comes up with from day to day. The mainstream media, which is really under the Rockefeller, the Democratic Party, the neocons, be it in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, these ones are the ones that also are controlling the media. And that's why you have the Washington Post attacking Trump, the New York Times now just jumped in, all these allegations. Now, can you tell me how it is that anybody knew what the hell Donald Trump spoke to with the Russian Foreign Secretary? How do they know what was said? Isn't this interesting? There's not been any substantial proof given of what was said. It was an allegation in the Washington Post that has just gone ballistic, and all these neocons, all these ones are taking it up, and it's like, he's in collusion, he's traitorous, let's pull him down, let's impeach him, let's have his neck. It's not being really reported. You get the surface stuff that's reported on the mainstream media. But this is a war between these two camps for control and power and domination in the end.
For those interested in following Will or Cosmic Awareness, or who wish to participate in any of his programs, links can be found in the show transcript for this story. If listeners feel that having this added perspective to some of the global events is meaningful, I'm open to exploring more possible segments like this in the future. Several years ago, CVN ran a story on a woman who had the ability to communicate with animals. At that time, Anna Breitenbach helped to heal a black panther that had been rescued but was extremely aggressive and untrusting of humans. The new guardians of the panther had agreed to allow Breitenbach to come to help as part of a story that was being done on her. She was able to successfully communicate and help to heal the emotional trauma of the panther, a trauma that also included the name that was given to him, Diablo, or Devil. When informed of this, the owners changed his name to Spirit, and they told Spirit they were not going to harm him or force him to do anything like in the past. I have come across another positive story about Breitenbach. In October of 2015, Breitenbach was in Australia, and she was participating in a project to communicate with sharks, particularly the great white shark. Humans have been socialized to fear sharks as being a threat to humans, which is not the case at all. Sharks generally will turn away after biting a human, recognizing that this is not its normal food supply. There are extenuating circumstances, however, and it is usually in these situations that the human has been making motions in the water that resemble shark prey. such as surfers wearing black water suits and paddling like seals or walruses. Here is a short sample of what Breitenbach describes in her conversation with the great white sharks.
In my life as a professional animal communicator, I have the wonderful privilege of connecting with animals purely energetically or telepathically and finding out from them directly what their thoughts and feelings are about their lives and their environments. Because of the number of incidents of sharks approaching people in the water, there's been a lot of fear and a lot of reaction, and all sorts of measures are being considered, of course, to try and keep the sharks at bay, or even worse. There's been votes in some parts of the world for culling them. There's talks of various repellent methods. So I was asked to check in with the great white shark species in that area in particular to hear what their view of humans is, particularly humans in the water, and what's really happening in that dynamic. What's going on when there's a so-called attack, and I do say so-called attack because I can guarantee you the shark's motivation is not attack, is not harm, and is certainly not to make us their food. Who I was speaking with was actually great white shark consciousness in general, and what they had to say about the state of play at the moment is what applies all around the world. The truth of the matter is that their food supply has been so decimated. In particular, they showed me a whole range of middle-sized fish species that are either completely absent or are in very, very short supply in the shark's normal range. So their normal food, for which they would go through normal foraging behavior, is just not available to them anymore at all. This has forced great white sharks to have to come a whole lot more inshore in search of the kind of diversity of food that they need. Most of the time they're just plain hungry a lot of the time, and because of being forced into more inshore waters and away from the threats out there, like long lines and fishing nets, they themselves, the great whites, are in a lot greater density. They're more tightly packed together as they're cruising our shorelines. The energy between these sharks is therefore competitive. There's a very limited natural food supply. They're all jostling for space and jostling against each other, and this creates a whole field of competitiveness between them. Let's jump track for a minute and look at how humans are being in the water when they are there for recreational purposes. Humans in the water, whether they're paddle skiing or surfing or involved in some sort of water sports, are very often in a very competitive frame of mind and state of being. And on a very real physiological level, that is sending out signals into the ocean. Heart rate variability is increased. The electromagnetic frequency emissions from our hearts, from our brains, are giving the signals into the environment of competitiveness and also hunting. For the surfer who's trying to catch the perfect wave, even in the language of it, there's a clue. Catching a wave has got a feeling of a hunter and a predator. So, enter from stage left the other predators, the beautiful apex predators in the ocean, who are themselves feeling competitive between each other. They have a high sensitivity for and a radar that's almost always on for sensing any other competitive or predatory signals in an environment. And when they sense that, they will go and check it out because it might be competition for their own hunting when they are hunting for their real food. When a shark gets closer to a human to come and suss out what is this energy ball that I'm sensing, this feeling of contracted energy, and they're hunting something, when they come closer, most of the time they just turn away, realizing that we're not real competition for them at all. They turn away, and the surfer or the paddle skier never knows anything about the shark having been there. However, if the shark decides to take a closer kind of inspection, the way that sharks test things is using their mouths. They mouth things to test us out. Of course, if that happens, the poor surfer in the water immediately knows the shark is there, and what usually follows is absolute panic. Understandable fear, understandable survival instinct kicks in, which unfortunately amplifies the hectic electromagnetic output and brainwave output from the human in the water. Essentially what the human is doing in that moment is behaving very much like prey. Splashing around, being panicked, that's very much a prey response. So at worst a shark may actually take a test bite. The moment they do, they realize we're not their natural food. We just taste really, really bad to them. It was interesting experiencing from the shark's perspective the taste of human flesh and their distaste for it. So I actually tasted that. Quite frankly, sharks view us as a bit too salty and just want to spit us out. And they have no reason to know that a little nibble on a human is going to end up potentially being fatal for us because we're likely to bleed out from some artery that they've severed. That's really not their problem and not their intention. If they want to attack us and finish us off, they would do that. They would come back again and again, and they would actually eat or ingest us. Fear is the greatest obstacle, and we are often fearful before we even step into the water. And the very thing we fear is what we're going to be putting energy into and inviting in. We literally are having the mental images or the quantum holographs of what it is we want to avoid, and that is sending those holographs out into the surroundings as suggestions, as energetic suggestions. So whether or not we are actually in the presence of a shark, fear is a very, very bad idea. And fear is not something that we can try to suppress with force. Far better when we're entering the water would be to adjust our mental state and our state of being and our state of calmness, and to actually come up with some silent messages we'd like to send to the unseen sharks out there or any other species out there that we don't wish to see. We are all capable of telepathy. Intuition happens in everyday life as a matter of course, usually only when it really matters or is urgent, or when we have a vague gut feeling or a hunch that proves to be true. But we can all choose to have a telepathic thought and just send it out by simply intending to send it out to our target audience, in this case sharks. We know that it lands there because it is being broadcast from our being, whether we like it or not. Everything that we are thinking and feeling is being broadcast. Therefore, we may as well broadcast the good stuff or the helpful stuff. And so my advice for people who are going to be getting into the water, that is sharks' home and their rightful place to be, when we want to go and have some fun there for recreation purposes, I suggest we start from onshore, standing there on the beach with our kayak or with our surfboard in hand, or just sitting quietly and taking no more than a few minutes to simply address the sharks. Address them silently. Even better to send a nice greeting. To send a greeting. It doesn't matter what language you're thinking in, they will get it on the quantum level. This is how telepathy works. Send a greeting, and you have to be genuinely, of course, honoring and respecting their right to be there. I've been fortunate enough to be swimming in the wild Indian Ocean with completely wild bottlenose dolphins, and in a few different of those occasions I've had sharks approach, tiger sharks and black-tip sharks, and by simply maintaining my innocence towards them and simple appreciation of them, despite the fact that I personally really don't want to be up close to a shark underwater, but extending my appreciation, my greeting, and holding an idea of that buffer has made them swim around me without coming within that radius that I have selected and I have chosen. It's really about who we're being, and we need to stop being competitive or even fearful in the water.
The rest of the interview can be heard or viewed at links available in the show transcript for this story, as well as the original video aired by CVN about the Black Panther. Over to tech-related news now. CVN has recently been trying to warn listeners about the continued use of Facebook as a social media. Many, including CVN, expressed concern with the launch of the Facebook Messenger functionality. Here's what a Fox News report had to say in 2015 about the Messenger functionality at that time.
Did you hear about this? Is Facebook playing another big brother? Some users are saying the social media site is really crossing the line with their new Messenger app.
Right. So joining us now is tech expert Anthony Mongaluzzo. Anthony, thanks for joining us. So many people are talking about this Messenger app. It used to be optional, but now it's going to be mandatory, I guess, if you download. You have to download it. So how does it all work, and why are people all worried about this?
So basically, this new app is getting terrible reviews. It has a 1 out of 5 stars on the iPhone App Store and similar ratings with Android. What the Messenger app basically does is you have to give away all of your privacy. You allow Facebook to look at your call list, your contacts, your text messages. It can even use your recording device and your camera device on your phone without even telling you.
Okay, that's the thing that scared me the most. Take me through that. I'm holding my phone right now.
Yep.
And if I have this Messenger app, they can see what I see, or even worse, spy on me with what I'm doing?
Hey, most of your phones nowadays have two cameras, the front camera and the back camera. So legally, you are giving them access to those cameras when you install this application.
So some creepy guy in the San Francisco Bay Area at some place in Facebook can be looking live at what I'm looking at?
I was going to say, don't even worry about San Francisco. Facebook is global. Around the world, they can look at you.
And Anthony, the big concern is that people are going to download it because they want it on their phone so they can message friends on their phone. And they're not even going to really realize that they're giving up their privacy for this.
Most people just click yes when it comes in. And the thing that's crazy to me is you already have text messaging. You could send pictures. Why do we need a Facebook messaging app when there's so many other ways to communicate?
Well, we know what they're doing. These big social media sites, including Yahoo and Google, they want customer information because that's how they monetize things, by selling your personal information to advertisers to target you as a buyer.
Exactly. They're going to know who you call, what text messages you say, what products you're talking about. For instance, I text and say, hey, I want the new Nike Fit Band. Well, then guess what? Facebook is going to start popping up some Nike Fit Bands on my phone.
Anthony, is this just only on your phone, though? It's not on your computer. Is that right?
Well, the terms of service of Facebook are similar. So technically, if you have a recording device on your computer or any other devices that you're giving them access to, then absolutely. So the terms of service really govern our relationship with Facebook.
So it sounds like we don't want this Messenger app at all. Chris and I were just talking about it. Sue Serio said
Facebook at all.
She downloaded it and then she realized and then got rid of it. Is she okay now that she took it off?
Good point.
Yeah, once you take it off, you're fine. And the interesting thing is, this is going to drive people to other messaging applications such as WhatsApp app. And oh my goodness, guess who owns that?
Facebook just bought them.
Exactly.
Well, it was like for $2 billion or something ridiculous.
It was a little bit more than I have in my pocket, yeah. It was up there.
So do you think this is going to drive people off of Facebook altogether?
It could. I mean, a lot of people are removing it once they're doing it. And at the end of the day, we are the consumers, so we need to vote. If we download and run the app, we're voting for Facebook. If we don't, Facebook is going to have to make changes or they're going to make less money.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think this just goes too far. Anthony Mangaluzo, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Much like all the other dangers surrounding the use of mobile phones and Wi-Fi technology, the idea has been to get people as addicted as possible to these functionalities and gadgets so that they would complain if things were not working. This is a form of getting consent from the people so that people willingly surrender their rights in order to be continuously harmed with Wi-Fi signals and electromagnetic radiation from mobile phones and so much more. It is, of course, all about choices. Using Facebook for a very specific purpose, as I do with CVN, for example, may serve a purpose. However, questions may need to be explored about constant use of social media to communicate all forms of personal information, photos, comments, and discussion. The addiction has to stop somewhere and at some time. Although most regular listeners of CVN will know of and understand the concept of free energy, at least at its most basic levels, for others it may be more challenging to make the leap from the traditional sources of energy that they have known to a world where fossil fuels and power transmission lines are no longer necessary. In fact, they were never necessary at all, but it was all part of the elaborate energy scam that has been perpetrated against humanity and resulted in significant damage and harm to our planet and to all life upon our Earth. China appears to have made a so-called new discovery in a fuel source, and this source may be the kind of transition energy source that some may need to hear about to begin preparing for even greater revelations in the future. RT reported on May 19th that Chinese miners have managed to extract combustible ice from the seafloor of the South China Sea, according to the Ministry of Land and Resources. The successful collection of the frozen fuel was a major breakthrough that may lead to a global energy revolution, said China's Minister of Land and Resources, Jiang Daming. The article goes into more detail about the discovery, writing that flammable ice is methane hydrates with molecules of methane gas trapped in a lattice of ice crystals. It can exist only in conditions of very low temperatures and high pressure. 1 cubic meter of combustible ice is equal to 164 cubic meters of natural gas, according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency. The article also adds this: it looks like ice crystals, but if you zoom into a molecular level, you see the methane molecules are caged in by the water molecules, said Associate Professor Praveen Linga from the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at the National University of Singapore, as quoted by the BBC. In spite of the low temperature, the hydrates are easily flammable as the gas encased in the ice catches fire once you bring it to a flame. The discovery is China's first success in the mining of flammable ice following almost 20 years of research and exploration, according to the ministry. The mining site is reportedly located in the Shenhu area of the South China Sea, 300 kilometers from Hong Kong. The miners managed to extract a daily average of 16,000 cubic meters of gas with high purity from the site. The natural gas hydrate is believed to be the best replacement for natural gas and oil. Moreover, fire ice is more environmentally safe and in large reserves, according to the head of the China Geological Survey Bureau, Zhang Ziran. The article also notes the contribution that this potential energy source could mean for many countries along the maritime Silk Road, and that demand for a source of energy such as this would be quite high. Although I personally continue to hold the belief that we are very close to a major breakthrough in terms of stabilizing free energy devices, I recognize that there is still a need for information such as this story to be released to help prepare people for very significant, very advanced, and very rapid changes in how humanity lives in the coming moments of now. Perhaps this is the whole reason why the United States has been actively engaging China in the South China Sea as a way of trying to claim this potential new energy source. Finally, in health-related news, to one who is closely observing people and observing the rapid changes unfolding upon the planet and within human consciousness, one may observe that other people sometimes seem to be crazier than they may have once been, or at the very least, something may seem to be different about another individual, but one is not quite able to identify what that difference is. In other cases, one may be noticing weird or unusual things happening within oneself. There are days I wake up, for example, and it may take me 30 seconds or perhaps even a bit longer to fully remember where I am. Various sources have been talking or writing about timelines and how the number of available timelines is allegedly dropping as humanity continues its collective awakening and the possibility of certain negative timelines is eliminated. Sources have indicated how important it is that we attempt to align our energies to the timeline that we desire to experience. Perhaps, for example, a timeline where one is healthy, or one is abundant, or perhaps that timeline that people talk about that has been called ascension. I came across an article from Amelia Benz from May of 2016 about timelines, and it got me thinking, as I have noticed unusual things that seem to be happening in my personal world. In an article from her Ascension 101 website, Benz looks at the symptoms of timeline jumping. She describes having had one such conscious memory of a timeline jump and how different it was from others that she had experienced. She writes that the difference was that I knew and felt that the experience of me had come in from a different timeline into this one. Instead of having a clear and solid memory and reality that this was my timeline, the opposite was true. My timeline and life up to that point was completely different. And at that point, I entered into this timeline into completely unfamiliar surroundings and relationships. The other interesting aspect was that I immediately knew what was happening, and that soon I would be able to access this timeline's memory constructs and reality, and be able to live in it without anyone knowing. The other distinct difference is that I have clear, although fading, recollection of my life in the other timeline, and it was very different. Our species was not plagued with war or fear. There were no roads, and all houses were 0 or minus impact. Gaia was fully activated and vibrating at her true frequency in our reality. Our species actively worked to keep a healthy and active link and communication with Gaia and all her creatures. Benz adds the following. Since April and May of 2016, there has been a flurry of timeline jumping on the planet, both at a personal level, as individuals commit to what paradigm they want to embody, and at a collective level, as we start aligning to those people and stories that are more resonant to our choices. Timelines, just like groups of people in our own timeline here, are dictated by our choices. When we truly choose to partake in a reality, we come together with others who are very much in alignment with that choice and move forward together. Have a look and see what realities and timelines you are stepping in and out of. Where is your focus of attention? Where and to whom is your energy going to? What are you feeding with your emotions, and what is the nature of those emotions? So, are you one who has been experiencing unusual energies and perhaps having feelings of being lost within an environment that is supposed to be familiar to you? Benz offers the following symptoms of timeline jumping, and you can compare them to your personal experiences and perhaps come to some greater understanding that might be taking place in your world at this time. Benz offers the following. 1. The physical body elemental is not at all happy with the shifting and moving of timelines. When this starts happening, the body becomes highly stressed and tense. This causes cramps and also pain on the back of the neck and shoulders, with a feeling of something tight around the head or a headache that won't go away. 2, a sense that you don't know what you are doing in that house or that workplace. It suddenly feels unfamiliar and that you belong somewhere else. 3, fantastic alternative daydreams about your own past, memories you know never happened. 4, you may have had a moment or more moments when you had no idea where you were, who the people around you were, and thought perhaps you were getting Alzheimer's or another type of mental incapacity. 5, you clearly know that the decision you just took has marked your life forever. The change might be slow to appear, but it is permanent. 6, your body suddenly heals, or some unknown ailment is suddenly identified, and the right treatment is also available. 7, there is an interest you have had for years, for which there was hardly any information, and suddenly there are hundreds of books and websites about it out there. 8, you go to someone's house, sometimes your own, and there is an object there that is different to how we remember it, a different color, shape, location, or design, and you disregard the unfamiliarity because it must have always been like that. Yet, you noticed it was now different. Sentences like, "Oh, I never noticed that the lamp had a string switch," or "I always thought that dresser was turquoise, but it's blue." And 9, people around you seem slightly unfamiliar, although you have known them for a long time, or your entire life. It feels to your body like you have just met. It's one thing to recognize that one is consciously and or unconsciously experiencing timeline jumping. The trick is in knowing what one can do about it. Benz writes, first of all, we can understand and relax into them. No, you are not mad. You are not losing your mind. Your memories haven't suddenly gone awry. And secondly, realize that this is a great opportunity for you to make a lifelong commitment to live on your highest frequency by choice. Become interested in your surroundings, in your life choices, in your people. And who are your people? Everyone you touch with your energy. Most of all, know that this is real, that we are going through this step in our evolution where we can, if we so choose, be aware of how subtle reality really is and how thin the walls between dimensions and timelines really are. It is a very exciting time. Know that you can now consciously choose highly resonant timelines. For those who felt a strong connection to this story or to experiences of this nature, the link is in the show transcript for this story, and people can order an online course from Anelia Benz if one feels called to at this time to understand more about timelines and what one may be experiencing. In this week's final words, I'd like to leave some thoughts with you from the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. In this clip, Dr. Dyer shares a very common thing that we all do as we're going to bed and getting ready to fall asleep. In these words, perhaps we may come to a better understanding about how to best use those few precious moments before falling asleep to set the tone for the day and the future we want to create, beginning when we wake up. I am unable to embed this video into the show transcript, but the link will be there for those who wish to review it. Create a wonderful week until our next moment of now. I leave you with Dr. Wayne Dyer on preparing to go to sleep.
Tonight and every night for the rest of your life, I want you to take the last 5 minutes before you go off to sleep and realize that you are about to program your subconscious mind. All right? Your subconscious mind is most at home when you are unconscious, when you are asleep. If you spend the last 5 minutes of your day, which so many people do, reviewing all of the things that you don't like and all the things that didn't work out and how terrible you feel and who abused you and who was mean to you and who said this and they did this, and you're constantly doing this kind of thing with your mind, then you are programming your subconscious mind that when you awaken, because you're now about to marinate for the next 8 hours in your subconscious mind. And then when you awaken, you will rejoin the universal subconscious mind, the mind of God, from which we all originate. We're all just individualized personal expressions of that one thing that we call the Tao, or God, or divine mind, or soul, or spirit. But the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So you want to be real careful about how you program your subconscious mind. This is from the book of Job. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. Job 33, 15 and 16. When you are slumbering on your bed, he opens your ears and seals your instruction. What you place into your subconscious mind as you are about to go into this deep slumber is all dependent upon what you do the last 3 or 4 or 5 minutes before you go off to sleep. You want to place into your imagination whatever you have placed into the I am that I spoke about earlier. I am well. I am content. I am peaceful. I am happy. I am prosperous. I am abundant. I am God. I am God. I am God. Because at the basic core, each and every one of us are just that. I want to do just like if you just close your eyes and just listen to this meditation. It's from the book 3 Magic Words. Here's what I'd like you to say to yourself at night. I know that I am pure spirit, that I always have been, and that I always will be. There is inside me a place of confidence and quietness and security where all things are known and understood. This is the universal mind, God, of which I am a part, and which responds to me as I ask of it. This universal mind knows the answer to all of my problems, and even now, the answers are speeding their way to me. I needn't struggle for them. I needn't worry or strive for them. When the time comes, the answers will be there. I give my problems to the great mind of God. I let go of them, confident that the correct answers will return to me when they are needed. Through the great law of attraction, everything in life that I need for my work and fulfillment will come to me. It is not necessary that I strain about this. Only believe. For in the strength of my belief, my faith will make it so. I see the hand of divine intelligence all about me, in the flower, the tree, the brook, the meadow. I know that the intelligence that created all these things is in me and around me, and that I can call upon it for my slightest need. I know that my body is a manifestation of pure spirit, and that spirit is perfect. Therefore, my body is perfect also. I enjoy life, for each day brings a constant demonstration of the power and wonder of the universe and myself. I am confident, I am serene, I am sure. No matter what obstacle or undesirable circumstance crosses my path, I refuse to accept it, for it is nothing but illusion. There can be no obstacle or undesirable circumstance to the mind of God, which is in me, around me, and serves me now. This is the great lesson. Know this within you. When Herman Melville was writing Moby Dick, he wasn't writing about a man looking for a whale. He was writing about a man, Ahab, trying to find his higher self. He said these words, "For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man lies one insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but encompassed by all of the horrors of the half-lived life." In every moment of your life as you leave here today, you have this choice. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. Thank you. God bless you.
So that is the sample of the unfolding higher consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is broadcast weekly from the CosmicVisionNews.com website. Links to stories used in this broadcast are published in the show summary, which is available on the website. CVN can be followed on Facebook, unseen.is, minds.com, YouTube, and also on Twitter, Google+, and LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that by focusing on what one fears, one is sending the holographic suggestions out into the quantum field as potentials for manifestation. Therefore, avoid fear. Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love, hold the vision of light and peace in your hearts, and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.